Bridie Cunningham, a founder, member of Homegrown, and a co-founder of Portman Scott. And I think it's better that you introduce yourself because you've been through your own journey, and then we go through some nice questions.
Sure, thanks, Joost. Good morning, everyone. As Joost has said, I'm one of the founding members of Homegrown, and I also am a co-founder of a company called Portman Scott. We're a niche recruitment company that specialise working with growth companies, small startup companies across all sectors. So you name the sector, we've probably worked in it. And it's great to be here this morning. I'm not a professional recruiter in terms of it's not my lifelong career, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. I have had various roles in the corporate world at a senior level. So recruitment came to me late in life, but I'm very pleased to say it's been a good career move.
Yeah, so let's start. I mean, I think recruitment must have taken a hit in the current climate. So many weird things happening at the moment. And is there anything happening right now for you where you adjust to this?
I think it's safe to say, like everybody, when we got word of the lockdown a couple of weeks ago, I won't lie, I had a big sharp intake of breath and thought, wow, what are we going to do with our business going forward? Because you know, there are some recruitment companies that are doing incredibly well out of it, who are, you know, if you're recruiting for the NHS, if you're recruiting for a logistics firm or something like that, there's no doubt these people are busy. But as I said, our target market is growth companies, SMEs, private equity-backed businesses, owner-backed businesses. And so for us, like a lot of businesses, we predicted we would be taking a hit. But after we took our sharp intake of breath, we suddenly realised actually there may be an opportunity here, not so much for us immediately, but definitely for some of our clients. And more importantly, some of the clients that perhaps had wanted to work with us but couldn't. So we have produced literally over the last week a new model that we think gives opportunity to a number of people. And this model is based on those growth companies that perhaps have not been in a position to hire before. So there's a number of companies that are in that whole chicken and egg situation where they're trying to grow but don't have enough people in the business to do that, and perhaps don't have enough senior people in the business to do that, or have been told that they may pick up investment in the future but need to have a more stable business right now. So we find ourselves in a situation where there are an awful lot of really good people who perhaps have found themselves without a job through no fault of their own, who are sitting at home, and whereas historically, if they had the funds, might say, do you know what, the market's terrible at the moment, I'm going to take myself out of it, I'm going to go travelling for 6 months. Well, we all know that's not an option. So rather than sort of sit on the sofa and watch Netflix for the next 4 months, we're saying to people, look, why don't you take this opportunity to go and work with a growth company, a startup company, a company that could really use your expertise, but sadly can't quite afford you at the moment. And we're negotiating with a number of companies for those people to join on a reduced salary for a period of time. And we agree that period of time up front. And then at the end of that period, and that may be 4 months, and again, we agree this all up front, we agree what their market salary would be, what the temporary salary would be, and then at a given time in the future, we'll revert back to the market salary. Now, we don't know what the future holds, so it's quite possible at the end of that sort of 4 months or whatever the agreed time is, that the company may not be able to keep them on. And I think we all have to be grown up about that. And we would say, you know, look, you've had a great experience for 4 months working with a company you wouldn't normally have worked with. The company has had the benefit of your experience. But then when you're going out, when the candidate's going out into the open market, they'll have something interesting on their CV during this difficult time, as opposed to in the, you know, if they'd done nothing, they would have a fallow period on their CV. So look, it's something we've pulled together. We've put it forward to a number of companies. We've had a really good response. We're hopefully going to do our first deal today. In terms of fees, for any of the people that are on here who are company owners, what we're saying is we would defer our fees until such point that you're able to take the person on permanently on the full market salary. and that's our giving back. So we'll take the risk and defer fees. But I think it's a model that's been well received. It's not something we'll be able to do long term. It's something we're doing now to help us through this challenging period. We won't call it a crisis, we'll call it a challenging period.
Yeah, but I think it will create a lot of loyalty as well. And when you give the people the opportunity to offer your services like this, I mean, that will build indirectly the relationship anyway, as a long-lasting relationship. Do you see in the current market, or in any time, how would you set yourself apart to attract good people? Because especially when there's a startup or a small company or a less known name of a company, how do you set applicants apart, and the company itself as well?
You know, lots of people come to us and say, how am I going to recruit good people? Because I'm just a tiny company that doesn't have a strong brand name, that maybe doesn't have a very, on the surface, interesting product. And actually, that's a bit of a myth. And I think a lot of small companies don't realize the advantage that they may have, providing they handle it well. So, you know, let me give you some examples of where it's worked well and where it hasn't worked well. So one of the great things about the companies we work directly with a lot of the CEOs, because as I said, they are slightly smaller companies. And what happens, and what we very much encourage, is the first interview to be directly with the CEO, because no one tells the story of the business better than the CEO or the founder. And you know, that one-to-one hour, and that's all it need be, is an opportunity for the CEO to really explain why they started the company, why they're passionate about their company, what the future plans are, what are the challenges, warts and all, what it's like to come up with business, what they aspire to, what their values are, what their ethics are. And you'll be amazed at how important and how valuable that can be to a candidate. And that's a massive advantage that some of the larger companies don't have. And I think a lot of people don't realize that and don't use that to their benefit. And we very much encourage our CEOs and our founding owners to do that. So that's a good example. Let me give you a bad example that we've experienced. We worked with a really, really luxury retailer. I won't share the name with you, and I'd just say, we didn't say at the beginning, host, all of the things I'm going to talk about, you know, have Chatham House rules attached. But a luxury retailer, a household name, you know, if I were to tell you it, you'd all say, wow, I'd really like to buy something from there. So we were really excited when we started working with them. Some of the things they did, that they told us they did for customers, were truly unique. So if a customer in Abu Dhabi wanted something tomorrow, they would put a sales consultant on a plane to deliver it, to hand deliver it to Abu Dhabi, rather than take the chance of it going on DHL. They also told us about a time a customer came in, spent £150,000. She made some comment that she liked the sales consultant's shoes, and they arranged for a pair of the shoes to be delivered to the hotel as a gift from the company. So, you know, outstanding customer service. And that's what we were telling our candidates. We were placing salespeople for them, because we work at all levels. We work from sort of MD right down to, you know, sales consultants. Now, interestingly, when we went through the recruitment process, that's not the experience we had. They never came back to us. They never gave us any feedback about the candidates. And, you know, we were really quite shocked. And when we challenged them on it, their answer was, we're too busy dealing with customers to give you feedback on candidates, or to tell you why we're no longer hiring, or to even let you know that the position's been filled. We don't have the time for that. We're too busy focusing on our customers. And I think it's a classic example of, you know, not sharing the values of your business to the people that you're hiring. And funny enough, then, you know, we have struggled to find people for them, because that word gets out, not from us, but from the candidates, the experience that they have. Whereas the previous example I gave you, you would be amazed at how many people come back and say, I really want to work for that company. I really want to work for that guy. And even if they don't get the role, they're busy telling everybody what a fantastic company it is. So going back to your original question, host, I think smaller companies actually have an advantage when it comes to hiring people. They just sometimes don't realize the advantage they have, or sometimes throw away the opportunity they have.
Yeah, I mean they can as well. The CEO can share the ethos, the whole thought process, and set expectations right from the start when they are part of the team afterwards.
Of course.
Um, they can live and breathe the same way as the CEO. Do you do it the other way as well, like bottom up? For example, that you let them have a chat with the peers or direct reports and understanding what the companies are about before they start, so they get really under the skin of the company.
Yeah, so again, point of difference. A number of our clients, where a person's going to be working as part of a team, they quite often will arrange, and this is a real trust thing. They may arrange, if a company has Thursday night drinks, they may say to the candidate, "Look, why don't you come along and have drinks with the team?" And actually, the CEO or the person who's hiring may not be there because
Yeah,
they have every confidence in their company that their team will welcome the person in. Equally, if the team doesn't particularly gel to the person, they may decide at that point that person's not right for the
yeah,
team.
exactly. Yeah.
So, no, that's becoming quite common as well.
So yeah, at the moment, as we all on Zoom right now, there are lots of barriers. Um, how can we, like, how do you say, how can we ensure that we hire the right people if you don't meet them in person and spend time with them besides what we're
Um,
doing right now?
yes, there's no question
Yeah.
that what's happened in the lockdown has proved to be quite challenging in terms of interviewing people, meeting people, and so on and so forth. And today, for example, we've got 6 interviews happening today where we've got candidates meeting clients for the first time on Zoom. And it's really interesting because the world cannot stop. You know, the world cannot stop. We don't know how long we're going to be in this lockdown. So we're having to work with things like Zoom to ensure that interviews go ahead. And it's interesting though, we've kind of thought about this, and particularly for salespeople have really not enjoyed or expressed their concern about being interviewed on Zoom. But I think we have to be realistic. Even when all of this ends, Zoom is still going to be, right now it's our best friend. It may not continue to be our best friend, but I think it's going to be in the top 10 of friends that we have for life. And I actually think we've become much more aware of our environment, aware of our time. And actually, I think we will see more meetings held on Zoom, more interviews held on Zoom going forward. So therefore, if part of your role going forward is going to have to be pitching on Zoom, then you could argue it's quite important that you're interviewed on Zoom so that you can, people can see whether you've got the skills to actually be able to have a relationship with your client on camera as well as you would do if they were in the room. Because as I
Yeah,
said,
we have.
how
Yeah.
it's going to be going forward for all sectors, for all roles.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. I was interrupting you. What did you say? Sorry, the last sentence.
So I'm saying I think that's the way it's going to be going forward. I think for all sectors and for all roles, whether they're even having meetings and they're going to have to lead through Zoom, or they're
Yeah.
going to sell through Zoom, or they have to go to negotiate and influence through Zoom, I think Zoom's here to stay. And therefore, actually being interviewed on Zoom is probably quite a good idea to see how well people do it.
Yeah, I think the world is changing, and people will have to pitch more through Zoom or their new companies, or interview, or you can actually have quite a good selection process prior to meeting the person or meeting the in person basically. Now I hear a lot in the recruitment world and so about client market versus the candidate market. Yeah, so what does that mean?
It's a really common term in terms of recruitment with the client's market or it's a candidate's market, and so let me explain what that means and how quickly things can change and why it's important for hirers to know which market we're in. So just in simple terms, a candidate's market is what we were in probably before lockdown, where there were probably more good roles available than there were actually good people. I know that may seem shocking to some people, but that's the case. And not in all sectors, in certain sectors. And I think we're still seeing that in IT and various other sectors. I mean, you could argue NHS now is a candidate.
Mm.
So that's really where, as I said, good candidates will have choice. And it's interesting. And when I say choice, I don't always mean about salary. You know, not all candidates go for the highest salary. There's a whole wealth of things that are important to them and they're looking for. So when it's a candidates market, it's even more important that the client, as in the company that are hiring, really understand their own sales pitch and really understand how they need to come across to the candidate as to why the candidate should choose them. And so for us as a recruitment company, that's really important that we, and I mean, we do this all the time, but that we really understand our client. We really understand what it is they do, what it is they're trying to achieve, what the type of person they're looking for. Because certainly when you go into search, you are the first person that they meet from that company. And therefore it's for you to pitch to that candidate why they should even meet the CEO. So that's very much a candidates market where it's all on the client to a certain extent to pitch why the candidate should come and work for them, because they probably will have a choice of who they can go and work for. And that's where we were, I think, before lockdown, certainly in a number of industries. What I think we may go to, and I don't know because I don't have a crystal ball, but what I think we may go to when we come out of this is a client's market, whereby there will be a number of people who, through no fault of their own, are now available. And the client there'll be more clients there'll be more clients looking for people. And therefore, I think the candidates will need to really work on why they're the right person for the client, because I think the client will have choice. And that's what we mean when we talk about a client's market versus a candidate's market. Where it becomes really important, and where if you are working with a recruitment company or a headhunter, is quite important, is to understand which market we're in. And they can give you that indicator fairly quickly, because as we've just seen with this lockdown, it can change overnight.
Yeah. Just more about you. What made you go into recruitment in the first place?
It's an interesting one, and I have to say, host, I used to be the head of UK for Car Phone Warehouse when I had a corporate role. Prior to that, I had some senior positions in Marks and Spencer, and obviously recruitment was part of my role. I mean, certainly when I was in Car Phone, I had 24 people working directly for me, and recruitment was the bane of my life. And actually, I then started my fashion business just before I went into recruitment. So it's always been quite important. And it's interesting. I hated it, and it was a bane. There's no doubt about it. But I can honestly say, looking back now, whether it was my corporate role or my own business, I think it's probably the area, looking back, I wish I'd spent more time on. Because, you've only got to look at anybody. It often comes up in, interestingly, I'm on the board of the British and Irish Trade Alliance, which has over 600 members of people that own their own business. And the thing that comes up time and time again is, the thing that keeps me awake at night is finding the right people. So, and I can say, looking back, that's something that I would have spent more time on. But interestingly, like all these things, and I have to say, when my business partner, who's on this call, suggested we did a recruitment business, I wasn't initially overwhelmed at the idea. But I have to say now I love it. I absolutely love it. And the reason I love it is, like most things, when it's the only thing you do, you can do it properly. Because there are no shortcuts to recruitment, and that's why it's the bane of everyone's life, because it is time consuming. It is, to do it properly, you need to do all your research. You need to really understand the market. You need to ensure your network is kept very wide. You need to be on the end of the phone for anyone who wants to talk to you about, their career prospects or what have you. And as I said, when you have the luxury of that's your business and that's what you specialize in, it becomes a completely different ball game. And the other thing, of course, is we get to work with some really interesting companies across all sectors. I have worked with companies I had no idea existed. I've worked with owners who make widgets that change our lives that I never knew existed. And I think that's a real privilege. And we're really honoured to work in partnership with them, to work in partnership with companies. And I think one of the best examples of that is we were working with a company, a financial services company based in London. They've got jurisdiction in 30 countries. We've done quite a lot of work with them, placing MDs in far-flung places like the British Virgin Islands, Isle of Man, and what have you. And they came to us with a very, very niche role. And I think you have to be honest when you're in a partnership with a client. And they came to us with this role and said, can you do this for us? And I said, no, we can't, because I don't understand the role. No one in the team understands the role. It's too specialist. You know, we can't do it. And it was interesting. They came back to us and said, no, you understand our company. You understand our people. You've placed loads of people. You know all the people they're going to be working with. Why don't you come in and spend half an hour with our specialist, and they will train you on what the role is, the types of company this person's likely to work for. And, you know, we've got every confidence you'll be able to find them. Now, we did that. We found the person, ironically, not in one of the companies they suggested, but in a similar company. And that person's been with them for the last 4 or 5 years. And that's a massive example of companies working together in partnership. Now, I have to say, when I was head of the car phone warehouse, if someone said to me, can you train me on a role that you want me to hire and then you'll pay me a fee at the end of it, I'd have said, earn your fee, you know, go out there and do it yourself. But actually, that's a real example of when you work together, you get the end common goal, a better end common goal, perhaps. And certainly that's yeah, I'm not saying we have that relationship with all our clients, but that's an example of why I love what we do so much.
Now, there's a question came up through the chat that you had quite big roles before this job, and what was the biggest mistake, or what went really wrong in your recruitment in the past, where you think, oh, why did I do that? And if I had the knowledge of what I had right now, I would have avoided that.
I think, again, I kind of touched upon it. I think it's putting the investment and time. I think what happened when I had big roles, and I did make some huge recruitment mistakes, there's no question about it, and I know exactly where it went wrong. I didn't put enough time into thinking about who it was that we wanted. I then told, at the time, probably my PA, that then went and told someone, that then went and told someone, that then went and told someone, that then went and told HR, who then outsourced it. And then when the person sat in front of me, I was just, I very openly say, God, this recruitment company's rubbish. You know, why have they sent this person? When in actual fact, the fault lay with us to a certain extent. And that's why we purposely work with smaller companies, so that we can actually talk to the hiring manager and we can hear it from the person who's actually making the decision, who it is they're looking for, what are the skill sets, and so we don't lose anything in Chinese whispers. So I'd say that's probably the biggest lesson I learned from it, in terms of spend more time actually understanding who it is you want, or have a conversation with your recruitment partner, because what they will do is effectively interview you and tease out from you who it is that it is, you know, what realistically, what is it you're looking for? And they'll also be able to guide you in terms of, you know, have you considered this type of person? Have you considered this sector? And really make you think a little bit more about the person that may be right for your business.
Right. So, well, what do you think the future will hold for your sector and for recruitment in general?
Look, who knows? I think there's an awful lot of business owners sitting there this morning thinking, what does the future hold for my business? And we're no different. But I think there will, I think technology is going to change things and has already changed things for some recruiters, but I think that's the recruiters that are perhaps looking for volume. So there's no doubt if you're trying to find 100 delivery drivers quickly, then, you know, technology will help you, and you'll be able to do that a lot quicker. I think for us, because it's very much a relationship with our clients, and each role is quite unique, I think for some of the things that I've mentioned earlier, the relationship will be quite important, and I think there will always be a need for recruiters recruiters who are required to really get into the nuts and bolts of a business and understand a business before they go out and find the right people, because it's not a cookie cutter type role that we do.
Do you recruit people from different sectors and place them in a totally different environment than what they're used to?
Yeah, so as I said, because again we work with the business owners quite often. We've got a lot of businesses where maybe they're the disruptor in the sector. So, for example, we're currently working with a manufacturer of a new solvent that's very, very sustainable. So it's really changing the way that they're going to clean machinery and big manufacturing businesses going forward. Now, ordinarily, you think you would go and get somebody from, a similar company to sell this product. But actually, what we're looking at is people that have worked in very disruptive type industries and who are able to articulate how to sell something new into very traditional companies. So ironically, for that particular role, we took somebody out of the food industry who understands the importance of hygiene, understands sustainability, and actually has a medical background prior to food industry, and they're actually going to go into that business. Whereas I think traditionally people may have thought we would have got somebody just from manufacturing. So sometimes the skill set actually comes from a different industry and works quite well. Sometimes it comes from the same industry. As I said, we've got examples of both.
All right, I think we should open up some of the chat box and see if there's any other questions, or if people want to ask the question directly, we can go one by one. I have here one question. Do clients tend to hire in their own image, and do you play a role in avoiding that?
Both, actually, both. So I think naturally people want to hire people that are similar to themselves because they feel very comfortable with them. But what we found is that obviously doesn't always work, because what we'll do in the interviews, we'll perhaps talk to the client about, what's missing in their business, what skill set is missing, and get them to try and understand a little bit about what they may need in their business. So look, everybody, as I said, everybody works with or enjoys working with people that they like, but it's our role to point out maybe some of the things that are missing and some of the skill sets that I may need to look for in some people. So we do a bit of both.
Okay, I think we can unmute the people and see if there's any other questions, and if there's too much noise on the background, we will mute the person. So Nina, could you unmute most of the people? Let's see. There's another question came through the chat. What has been your most wild card placement?
What's been my most wild card placement? There's probably a couple that spring to mind. So, and interestingly, they were both quite senior hires, so you could say they were an even bigger risk. But we had a luxury retirement village company, and they really wanted somebody who, they gave us a long list of what they required: someone that had a degree, someone that really understood luxury, somebody who understood private equity, whole list of things. And we actually interviewed a lot of people and gave them all people that fitted that profile. But actually the person that we gave them was somebody who didn't have a degree, came from a caravan park background, which couldn't have been further from what their background was. But interestingly, that person really understood customer, really understood the customer experience, really understood how to sell, really understood that the amount of money involved was life-changing, and how that was a big decision and a big process for people to go through. Really understood how to mentor and train people. Interestingly, when the client came to us, they said when the person's appointed, they're probably going to have to change the whole sales team. This person came in and only changed one because they were such a strong leader. And this person who came in as a sales director actually ended up being the MD of the company 5 years later. And the chairman said to me, I still remember the day you suggested that I consider somebody from a caravan park. Not that there's anything wrong with caravan park, but it was just so different from what I anticipated the industry, the person to come from. So that's probably one of the better examples, I think.
All right, anybody another question for Bridie? See if there's anything over the chat.
There's one here about diversity.
Yeah.
I actually think that I actually think smaller companies are really, really good at diversity in the sense that they really understand what it is they need in their business and what's missing in their business. Because they're so close to the coalface, they can really see that when you bring someone different into a team, the benefits it gives. And I think they're actually slightly ahead. And I would honestly say that in a lot of small companies, diversity isn't really an issue, because you can already see that they have a diverse span across their business. When we work with slightly larger businesses, particularly in very traditional sectors, we actually have more of an issue where I think some of the business owners are desperate to have a diverse team, but one of the challenges is there may not be much diversity in the candidate pool. And so what we have to do then is talk to our client, our company owner, about maybe thinking outside of their industry and bringing somebody from a complementary sector that would give them that diversity. But what they will need to do then is think about how they need to change their business model slightly. So a classic example is we were working with a company that was desperate to have a senior female on the board. And we said to them, when we talk to a lot of people about joining your industry, your sector, there is some concern that flexible working is not something that's very commonly practiced. And so he said, right, what do I need to do then to make it a good environment to be attractive? And we said, you need to provide more flexible working. And we worked together on achieving what that would look like. And to be fair, he was totally up for it. We've now got him a female board member. They are practicing flexible working, and all's going well. But you have to, in larger companies, I find, slightly larger companies, when I say that, they're still privately owned, they might be 100 million turnover. They're the ones that perhaps we need to coach them a bit more in terms of, yes, you want diversity, but what do you need to do to create the right environment to allow that diversity to be comfortable? Does that answer Dev's question? Doris' question?
I think so. Anybody else? A question?
But Bridie, can I just ask you, what's been your most surreal experience or bizarre experience when working with these companies, would you say?
I think people's I think probably not so much surreal, but surprising when you go in and get a brief from someone, and you've absolutely taken a brief and they're really clear about what it is they think they want, and then you come back with that person and actually you then have to tease, and they say, no, that's not what I wanted, but it's exactly what they asked for. But then you say, is this what you wanted? And you bring them something completely different, and they say, yes, that's it. And you suddenly realize that actually mind reading is a good skill for being in the recruitment world. Yeah, mind reading, but actually listening to what's not being said is pretty important as well. And I think people sometimes tell you what they want you to hear, but part of your role is to tease out of them what they really, really mean and what they really, really want. So I think that's probably, we've had a few examples of that.
But presumably, Bridie, if I can just come back on that, presumably, sometimes, understandably, people don't know what they want because they may not have ever done it before. So, for example, an owner, manager, founder who may have founded a tech company or whatever it happens to be may never have hired a marketing director or whatever it is. So what's your role in helping them then?
Quite often people will say to me, we've had a classic example. We said, I'm on the board of the British and Irish Trade Alliance, and there's an awful lot of construction companies and engineering companies. And one of them said to me, why would I need a marketing director if I've got a good sales team? And actually we ended up doing a session on what a good marketing director can do, and explain to them, actually a good marketing director can reduce your sales team because they can effectively raise your brand awareness, give information to your typical audience about what you do. They can reduce your cost per acquisition for new clients. They can make all your sales become incoming, as opposed to having a large sales team that are going out and flogging your wares to an audience that perhaps are not the right audience. So we ended up doing quite a good session on what a marketing director does. And interestingly, a number of those companies are now hiring marketing directors and seeing benefits that can bring them. And also the industry knowledge that a marketing director can find for them that gives them the cutting edge over some of their competitors.
Thank you.
So there's another question here. What's the best connection or referral we can make for us right now? Thanks, Claire. I think we're really interested to speak to companies, owner companies, private equity backed companies, any company that perhaps is looking to hire naturally, but also may be interested in talking to us about our new model. As I said, the model whereby we can perhaps give them people at a lesser cost for the next few months to help them reach their next goal, and give them that kind of head start, so that when we do get back into whatever the new normal is going forward, that will enable them to be ahead of the game. And as I said, it's a win-win for both, because we've got a number of candidates who perhaps have found themselves in a situation where they won't be working for the next few months. They'll be able to do something, be able to get some income, but also make them ahead of the game, as I said, when the new normal comes in. Thanks, Claire. Anything else?
Bridie, I have a question.
Yes.
We talked about diversity earlier. What do you think about, how do you think this time where everyone is sort of now working from home, and it's becoming quite clear that it's perfectly possible to a certain extent. And in my previous company, I used to work for Swarovski in marketing, and it was we had flexible working hours, and we had the opportunity to work from home. And because it's a global business, we had a lot of calls on Skype anyway. But I'm aware that a lot of companies now had to really quickly adapt and organize for their employees to be able to work from home. So do you think this whole period now will change that forever, so that the companies are more open for working from home or flexible working hours and that sort of thing?
I think yes, as I said, I think working from home, selling on Zoom, doing pitching meetings on Zoom, group meetings, working from home, I think absolutely will become much more normal than perhaps it has been. And I think there are a number of traditional companies that perhaps felt that working from home wasn't something they could do, and having this baptism of fire has really brought it home to them that actually, short of being customer facing, where you actually have to stand in front of the customer, there is no reason why definitely parts of everybody's business can't be home working on a more regular basis. And also the cost savings as well. I think people will start to see the benefits of that for companies as well. But what I think companies will need to do is, there's an awful lot of people looking into this now, how you still maintain the teamwork and team ethos when everybody's dotted around the country.
Yeah, of course. I think if it was just for a few days, I think when we're back to normal, just having that flexibility really makes a difference. And I think it's not just cost saving, but also time saving for everybody, because especially traveling in London is so time consuming. So don't know how everyone else feels about it, but I think it's quite amazing how much you get done if you just don't have that hour of commute.
Absolutely, but I think one of the challenges will be how do you, and I was on a call yesterday with a large training company, how do you do training and how do you develop people, particularly people in the early parts of their careers? You know, how do you maintain that when everybody's working from home? And also there are a number of people that don't have great home setups for working from home. You know, if you're flat sharing or house sharing with 5 or 6 people, and the only private room you've got is your bedroom, then you know, there's some challenges there as well. So I think a lot will happen over the next few months as when we go back into the new norm. But definitely home working, I think, will become more frequent.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Right. Is there any other questions? And no, then thank you, Bridie, for this members event, our breakfast event without breakfast, or your own breakfast. And thank you all for joining us. We have quite a numerous events coming up. Tomorrow, the new era of enterprise is a large event. We have Greg Wallace, the chef from MasterChef UK, doing a presentation of his struggles through his career, and we have the rockstar John Stapleton coming up as well in a few weeks' time. Our first virtual rockstar event. So watch the closed LinkedIn group and the e-shots for the members events. And we have a couple of public events as well, but also specialized just for homegrown members. And hope to see each other soon again.
Sorry, yes, can I just say thank you very much for joining me this morning. If anybody wants to have a chat with me, I think Joost will share, or Nina will share all my details.
Absolutely.
And I think you said it's recorded if there's anybody out there who's missed it who may want to see it later on.